Yeah, where do you start when you're the one who's, I guess, trying to explain to everyone how you got into an organisation that in 10 years' time you hope no longer exists? Because we've been able to do and educate, provide to people right around the country and even potentially the world to be able to work through their challenges. They know where to get support. They can turn to each other. You know, I'm hoping in 10 years' time that we've been able to instill the skills in everyone to be able to go out and reach support and where to turn to talk to and what services they can go to get help, or instill the skills in kids coming through the school system so they don't get to adulthood without knowing that information. You know, and hopefully in 10 years' time I'm doing a job that, you know, I never thought I was going to do, because we've done the job that we need to with mental health education and providing the pathways for support. Where do you even start in telling that story, I think, is one of the most difficult things for anyone to really understand. Do you go as far back as your childhood? For myself, it was a good one. It was great. I had great parents, I had a great family, I had learned really amazing skills from each and every one of them. How to work hard, how to say yes to things, how to do a skill or an activity or a job off the back of why not do it? You enjoy doing it, you've got a reason behind doing it. Why not just go and do that? You don't need a reason to do anything in life. As long as you go, yes, I want to do that, well, why not go and do it? If it's where your passion is, if it's where your happiness is, well, then go and do that. Do you start at high school or through sport, where I started with football, where I made most of my friends was through those sort of communities, where I learned almost everything about myself was through the community of sport, through football clubs growing up. And that was even making mates that weren't just the ones that you played with, but also the ones that you played against. And walking into high school and walking into your mate and going, oh, well, we don't know anyone else, we may as well just be friends. But we've never grown up before. We played on 2 different sporting clubs. And you're going through high school and you create those really strong connections, and you make those strong connections through the sporting community, ones that you'll never forget, ones that you could be 40, 50, 60 years old and you're still going down to that same club, seeing the same people. You see them out and remember those memories that you had of playing that sport. Do you start where it may have all started to change in terms of the mental health space for me, where you unfortunately lose a mate in an accident, and your whole community, your whole friendship group, everyone around you is just going through such a difficult time and so much pain, and you look around, you understand all the support that you have around you there. You don't notice it at the time, you're so transfixed on the emptiness that you're feeling because you've just lost someone close to you. But when you look back on it, you go, wow, those people, especially those older people and those people that potentially knew that person, for them to be able to provide that support, provide that care is amazing. Or do you go 9 days after that when another mate unfortunately takes his own life, part of the same community, and not understanding anything that is occurring at that time? You're almost depleted of pain. You know, that was the feeling that I had. I was almost like, well, I'm numb now to this. You know, where's this pain coming from? And remembering the situation that you're in, to be able to, you know, almost step back and take in the amount of support that was around you, even though potentially at the time, I didn't want it. I didn't want that support. I was like, no, I can do this. I'm 21, 22 years old. I'm like, no, fuck this, I got it. But without that support, would we have come through it the way that we did? Would we be on the other side knowing that we can turn to those people that were around us for that support? You know, the answer is probably no. The answer is definitely no. We wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here where I am today. And I know the people that went through that difficult time with me and were going through their own challenges at that time with the pain and the loss of mates, definitely wouldn't be in the situations that they are now without those people around us. Those people who did it, they were in pain. You know, they were usually parents or community members or coaches or friends that we knew that didn't know the person who passed away, that just went, well, I've got to help. Why not help? Why not do it? Just go and support. And they didn't know what they were doing, but it worked. And I think that's a really big message that I took away from that period of time, to lose 2 mates in the space of 9 days. That even if you don't know how to support, just do it. You know, you may make something a little bit worse, but you know, the intention is there and the good intention is there, and that's what you want to be able to do. You know, do you start to explain your story from when your mate who you were best mates with in high school? That for me, I've blocked out half of my relationship with him because unfortunately I lost him. I lost him to suicide. But I remember what I remember, and there's stories about him that people will tell me, and I go, well, that's just not how I remember him. That's not how I remember Jake. I remember Jake as that kid that when we walked into high school together, he came up, gave me a hug, said, let's be mates because we don't know anyone else. The kid that I could turn to at school every single day if I was going through something, he'd still give me a smart ass answer and a cheeky grin. Going on holidays after high school, I don't remember any of that because the pain, I think, of losing him, I've blocked out. I've blocked it out, and it's not unless someone reminds me do I think back and go, shit, that actually happened. Like we were there and they were good times. You know, we come back together, you know, years later after high school, and he'd chosen a different path in life. I went down a different one. We had different mates, but we come back together and it was just like old times. We were friends again. You know, we were really close. We were great mates. And I remember he'd come to a night I was running for mental health, and he was so excited. He sent me 15 different photos about different, you know, outfits that he was going to wear. You know, does this one look good? What do you reckon about this one? I don't even know how to tie a tie. You know, I think I've forgotten from high school. And I remember him coming and coming up, giving me a hug at the end of the night and going, you know, that was amazing. And for him, that night didn't end amazing through different challenges that he faced with different people, but I don't remember any of that. I wasn't there. I just remember the happy Jake. And we were mates for so much longer, and you sit there, and for me, I think I've got an addiction to my phone, all off the back of what occurred. And I'm sitting at the gym and I'm actually waiting for him to come in and train with me. And I get a message on my phone just saying, hey mate, have you heard? And I'm like, well, heard what? This was from a different friend. And he's like, oh, that's it mate, Jake's gone. And you just, I think because I'd been through it before and I'd sort of gone through a suicide before, there was really no pain for me until I got home and started to process. And you know, you start trying to put pieces together and there's just no understanding of what's going on for that whole 2 weeks. And you have to, for me, I still don't remember. I don't remember half of those 14 days. And I have to go to different people around me, my parents, my mum, my friends. You know, how was I in those 2 weeks to try and figure out what was actually going on inside my mind, and what was I doing? Because I can't even remember eating breakfast throughout that time. And I remember, you know, saying goodbye to him and it being very, very difficult, and his mum and his sister just being incredible strength for everyone around there, and having just lost the closest person to them, their brother and their son. And then going through a process of going down to the cop shop to try and explain my whole life, and people telling me things about Jake that I never saw. I never saw those things. I only saw what I saw, and they were always amazing. It was always him giving me a hug, him cheeky grin, him, you know, pushing me to be a better person, because that's just the person he was. He would give you everything. And, you know, I don't listen to any of the other stories that I hear. Yes, they happened, and yes, they happened with other people, but for me, my memory is always going to be what I have, and I'm not going to let anything else tarnish that. And you get a call from his mum, I get a call from Deb, and she goes, right, you know, you've got to come have a coffee with me. And when Deb says go and do something, trust me, just go and do it. There's no point in fighting that lady. She's incredible. She's strong, she's motivated, and she's strong-willed. And I said, yep, no worries. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was a cafe in Heathmont, and we sat down and we spoke, and she said, I've gotten onto this organisation, I've got onto Outside the Locker Room, you need to go and work for them. And I was volunteering at a charity, I was PTing. It was one of the hardest decisions to leave the volunteering of the charity, because I was really close mates with the guy who was running it, to go and work for Outside the Locker Room. But if Deb said, you got to go and do it, you've got to go and do it, you've got to go and tell Jake's story in the way and in the environments that we would know it would have been received, right? From a footballer to footballers, or from a sports person to sports people, or from someone who's actually gone through it and unfortunately lost a mate and knows what that feels like, to tell young kids and to tell, work professionals that you don't want to go through that situation, because it's gonna change you. And if I could go back and have all my mates back, I would. And be working a desk job and in a call center. I don't care where it would be. If I wasn't here because they were here, that would have been fine. And Deb said, this is what you got to do. Go and tell Jake's story and make sure you keep telling it. And so that was it. I left. I pushed my way into working for Outside the Locker Room. And we get here, and we go around the country, and I'm reminded every time I walked into a random sporting club on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night at 7:30 in the freezing cold Australian weather. I've been to places where there's a fireplace in the corner because it's too cold for anything else. They've got no heater and it's -1 degree, and they're kicking kangaroos off their netball and football oval. I'm reminded every time I walk into that, this is why we do it. So this footy club, this sporting club doesn't have to go through the pain of losing someone in their community to something like mental health, to something like suicide. And every time I walk out of that, whether that 60, 70 people have taken anything away from what I've actually said, I know one person in that room is going to at least pick up one thing. And I can't quantify that into any data, but I know the feeling that when I walk out, that it's at least done something. The content and the stuff that we've given is done something. And every single day I wake up, and I don't know whether I'm going to wake up with, I've had a good sleep and today's going to be a good day, or I wake up and I just go, I'm not sure if I can pack all this in. And you do things to try and get yourself through the day, and then you get through the day and you go, right, I made it. I made it through this day. It wasn't the best day I've ever had, but I made it through. And it's about understanding who's around you and why you're doing it. I never had a reason of why I started in mental health. When I was, volunteering at the start, I hadn't lost my mates by that time, back when I was younger, when I was 19. It was really off the back of why not. Now I do have a reason, I've got a why. But what I like to instill in everyone is, well, you may not have a why, and I would rather go back to having no why. I'd rather go back to why not. There's no reason behind it. If I could change that, I would. And what I'm trying to get through to everyone is that you don't need that reason. Trust me, you don't want it. It's not something that you want. It's not something to get up and tell your story about how I lost a mate. You don't want that. What you want is to be able to go, you know what? I'm strong, I've got close relationships, I've got close friendships. All right? Tell your mates you love them and make it weird. Tell your parents you love them and make it weird. Tell a stranger you love them and make that super weird. All right? But it's about, we're all human and we don't want to lose anyone else. So that's why I guess how you start my story, I wouldn't even know. But what I want you to think about is, well, what story do you want to tell? When you are old and wrinkled and you're done with everything and you look back on your life, do you want your story to be, I reached out and I supported my mates and we're all here and they had an amazing life? Because that's the story I would like to tell. And that's the story moving forward for me that I'm definitely going to tell, is that my mates made it through their lives, they made their choices, they had their families, they had great lives, and they can look back on it and be happy that they were there to support each other and support themselves. So start your story. Make sure if it has a reason or it doesn't have a reason, still start it. Be out there, be supportive. It'd be one of the greatest things you ever do. Done.